What we would now like to direct, if you will, your attention to is the idea that your reality, although it is you, although it actually comes from you and is an expression of you, still to some degree can have the apparency of being external to allow for the idea of reflection, of knowing, of mentality. And therefore, one of the ways that you can perceive that your reality reflects back to you any idea in any given moment is as feedback, in a sense. The way we use the term reflection infers that what comes back to you is always reflective representation of what you have put out, who you are being, who you have decided that you are. And so therefore, what you perceive as coming back, so to speak, in the way that you separate out yourself in this way, is the feedback from your reality. Generally speaking, as a simplification, individuals will interpret the feedback in one of two ways. Now, there are an infinite number of ways that you may actually interpret it, but to illustrate the point, we will simply narrow it down to two. One, you trust that the feedback reinforces your decision, or two, you trust that the feedback negates or shows evidence contrary to your decision. How you interpret that feedback ultimately is what allows you to either maintain a preferred, desirable decision or seem to allow yourself to be strayed back, although that is an illusion, to perhaps a more disempowered, older decision. So it all boils down to your willingness to use whatever you perceive as coming back to you in the form of feedback as a reinforcement, as evidence for why your decision has stuck, is in fact registered, and is who you are. And this can take, shall I say, a bit of persistence, a bit of consistency before you actually seem to prove to yourself that all feedback, no matter what it appears to be, always reinforces your decision. If your decision is now conscious, in other words, rather than randomly allowing circumstances to dictate who you are and then saying, well, I must be this person, you're still making the decision but using the circumstances as your rationale, you can allow your decision, by trusting that your decision has indeed registered across the board, to have the feedback that comes back to you always reinforcing the decision, no matter what it looks like. Now, where the ingenuity, the creativity, and the persistence comes in is your willingness in a moment where feedback would come to you, having made a decision to perhaps change, to perhaps transform, whereby that feedback would appear on the surface to be contrary to your decision. At that point, you can, as you say, make or break your decision. If it seems to be contrary to your decision, you always have the option to simply remind yourself that although it appears to run contrary, your circumstance, your experience, relationships, apply this to anything, that it has to be a direct feedback of the positive decision, and therefore the aspect that you are noticing about that feedback is not the reason it is there, is not the proof of the reinforcement. All feedback has the ability to be always interpreted from the entire perspective of ranging all the way from the most negative to the most positive. For the situations themselves are fundamentally neutral, with no built-in meaning. They are a set of props, if you will. If you attach meaning that is inconsistent with your decision, then it can seem to be evidence that your decision simply did not register, or that perhaps you do not create your reality. But if you choose to look further, if you choose to go beyond the surface, if you choose to dive into finding how even this particular feedback, though it appears contrary, has to be supportive of my decision, you can begin to look at how the feedback serves you, reinforces, supports the decision, as opposed to how it refutes it, or how it seems to nullify your decision. And always will all situations, all feedback, contain the ability to either say, why is this happening to me? Or, how can this serve me? How does this serve me exactly the way it is? This will allow you to begin to use everything, including the seeming negative evidence, to reinforce your decision and to continue to support yourself, to fortify the decision itself. By being willing to not simply settle for what's on the surface if feedback seems negative, and being willing to probe further into how that feedback is not only a reinforcement of your decision, but essential to occur in order for you to fully express your decision, that particular approach is the approach that allows you to very quickly transform even the apparency of the feedback. For when you use all the feedback, no matter what it appears to be on the surface, to reinforce and support your positive decision, then the feedback, the nature of the feedback, your relationship to the feedback changes and transforms. And the result is, when you are consistent, never allowing the feedback to talk you out of your decision, that you will begin to see the nature of the feedback change, where the feedback will no longer even seem on the surface to refute your decision, will no longer seem on the surface to prove to you that indeed you do not create your own reality and are fooling yourself. And so the simple statement, how does this serve me? Exactly the way it is the beginning toward using all of yourself to express yourself more fully. I say the first step, because the second step is to truly act as though you really are committed to believing that, and takes the form, listen up, of actually appreciating, feeling gratification at the feedback for coming in the form that it has, allowing you to look at whatever it is allowing you to look at to reinforce your decision. And when you are willing, not facetiously, not sarcastically, but sincerely and honestly, to thank the negative seeming feedback and feel that appreciation, feel that gratitude, then you are truly expressing in action the idea that you are no longer able to be talked out of who you are by anyone, anything, any circumstance, any relationship. Period. Because it is a conscious decision that is generated for you, by you, and allows you to then express more of yourself. Another way to look at this is when you are simply willing, upon deciding who you are, to honor everything that comes your way and use it in a positive way, you are literally using more of yourself. And another way to put this is you are expressing yourself more fully. You are understanding yourself as a creator, choosing to create a physical experience which has certain parameters, certain seeming limitations in terms of occurring before, during, after, in terms of occurring in a time frame. But truly the other limitations that you perceive hold you back from being who you are simply transform. For nothing can hold you back from who you are except you.